That's actually a good point. Oh my god, he used Max C? Hello everybody, and welcome to part 5.1 of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Iceberg journey. Now, since this is a new part, I would like to remind you guys to please go and support a Bumbles video. Link to that very top of the description, like always. Now, we're on layer 5, what do we have still to talk about? We've already covered so much, and yet there's still so much more.
Abridged references in official releases. The relationship between abridged content and the series they're parodying is complicated.
I feel like we've already had something like this previously, no? Wasn't it with like Joey's card text or whatever, or like the monsters that he used? They wrote the descriptions with the type of voice that the abridged series had given to him.
Japan hates them. Can't get enough of whack-a-moling Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged channels whenever little Karibo feels froggy. On the Western front, though, gets a bit more frayed. A lot of fans either get into or get back into a show thanks to its abridged content. It's shorter form, more readily available, and is often more digestible thanks to its comedic slant. This does create a unique problem, where often people will use an abridged series as a replacement for the original product, or even say the abridged product is better. This sort of sentiment really became popular with the Cell saga of Dragon Ball Z Abridged and Sword Art Online Abridged, with fans appreciating DBZA's more serious plot beats, and Sword Art Online just being because people hate Sword Art Online. It's also
I do feel like a lot of the hate for SAO is kind of like, I guess, overdone. I don't think the series is that bad. That being said, my personal favorites from the series are definitely like the first half of season 1, where they're still in 9 cred. And I think War from Underworld? Or Alicization? I would have to rewatch it, but I don't really have the time to. I'm pretty sure those were like my favorite parts. Oh, and the movie as well. The movie was pretty good. For a story of that particular style though, I kind of preferred Log Horizon.
Popular sentiment among people who haven't watched the show. Tell me which time Goku was a bad dad. Was it that time he died for his son? Or that time he died for his son? Dumbass! With series like this being as popular as they are in the fandom, it naturally bleeds over into the whole community and eventually finds its way back to the original team who produced the dubs these shows are based on. As for the team working on Yu-Gi-Oh!, I think the best way to describe their relationship is worn out. At the beginning, dub actors would happily recite lines from the show and even take the stage with a little Karibo.
Wayne Grayson here. Brooklyn Rage!
Yeah, that's not really very funny the 17th time you do it, Pharaoh.
You're just jealous because I have an invisible motorcycle.
Damn it, he knows my secret. Okay, I'm sick of running. I'm just gonna stand here and wait for everybody to find me. After all, I am the main character. Sooner or later, the plot will just catch up.
In more recent years, though, there have been more stories about actors like Wayne Grayson and Eric Stewart saying the abridged series is disrespectful and they won't do lines from it anymore. I feel like the knee-jerk reaction is to shout them down and defend the abridged series, cause you worked at 4Kids. 4Kids tried to kill the abridged series. Nobody would even care about Yu-Gi-Oh! If it wasn't for Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged. But guys, little Karibo doesn't even like these jokes anymore. Imagine you work on a TV show that a lot of people really enjoy from their childhood, and you get to go to conventions to make appearances and meet fans face to face. Now imagine a majority of them only want to talk about a series you didn't work on.
Yep, that's fair. That's what I thought the angle was gonna be. That would really suck, actually. Like, you poured your heart and soul into voicing this character, but people only know you for somebody else who parodied you. It's kind of endearing that people, know you and recognize you and want to use, like, a bit of your work and create their own thing. Like, I think that's cool if I was in that position. But if all they know about you is that, and it kind of outgrows because of the popularity, anything that you've done, then yeah, I do understand the sentiment. I have to imagine it's quite similar to how I feel every single time I go outside, and then somebody's like, hey, how's the weather up there? You play basketball? I should just have a t-shirt with frequently asked questions on the front so that people stop asking me these kind of things. But I think they're just gonna continue to ask me that anyways.
And at points actively mocks your own work and are asked to read lines you've never read before. Now imagine that goes on for over 15 years! I get people who want to hear them talk about it, but holy shit, it's gotta get old after a while. However, it's not all negative. There are still some actors, like Tara Sands, who played Mokuba, who maintain a positive relationship with Little Karibo. And the impossible even happened on a few occasions. The abridged series was referenced in officially released Yu-Gi-Oh! Material. Now that sounds attractive, but let me break your heart real quick. There are no cards that reference the abridged material. Kinda. We already went over the abridged reference in the card Anthrosaurus's flavor text when it was imported as a part of the Joey 9. But there are no cards that were intended to be abridged references. The first time it was ever officially referenced was at the 2011 NAWCQ in the live duel between Yusei and Yugi, where after the duel finishes, Yugi congratulates Yusei on the win, and they ended out with a reference.
Well played, Pharaoh.
One question.
Yes.
What's a dual runner for?
Actually, I like to refer to it as card games on motorcycles.
Later again, when Yusei was set to duel Akiza, they would tease fans with the reference and literally turn to the crowd Evil Within 2 style.
I'm intrigued. What do you say we have a turbo duel? My dual runner's parked outside. Card games on motorcycles.
Oh my god!
These are events that are meant to get a big crowd reaction and make fans happy. So what better way to do that than by mentioning a fan favorite work?
I mean, yeah. It's a community-driven event for the community, so you kind of want to be speaking the same language as the people who play your game. Obviously, I don't mean English or anything like that. I mean, you know, what is popular with them? How do you speak to your community? Making these kind of references means that you know and you understand. And I mean, they're made in a way where it's just comedic humor. And I think people appreciate that part. But I wonder where this is leading. Is it gonna go too far? Or have they just stopped because of a certain incident that happened?
It's not the only place they get referenced though, as one can even be found in an official Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game. In Duel Links, Tristan was added as a playable character. We're still not sure why. Like every character, he needed skills specific to him, but his lack of duels made it hard to think up any good ones. In fact, he only has 3 exclusive to him. I'm Not Done Yet, Deckmaster ability Cyber Commander, and one that allows him to make the attack of any monster he controls 2,000. The name of that skill was Super Strength, a reference to the abridged running joke, "My voice gives me super strength." The announcement for Tristan being added was even punctuated by referencing the joke. References to it might be few and far between, but the fact it was referenced at all for being such an influential work, not just in Yu-Gi-Oh! Circles, but internet culture as a whole, is a nice badge of honor. And as a bonus, it's even been referenced in Yakuza.
Of course it has. Okay, at the very least it didn't end poorly. It still is kind of a shame though that the voice actors themselves kind of get bombarded by things they haven't done. So yeah, I understand that. I also understand it from the side of the fans too, who are really excited and love that kind of thing, and they want these voice actors to do that. But yeah, actually, now I think about it, I should definitely understand exactly how they feel. It's like all those comments that tell me how much they love these reactions, and then they recommend I want a particular thing, and then they get kind of disappointed that I never check it out after a few weeks or months. People just don't realize that there are thousands of other people who've said and done the exact same thing and want me to check out their own thing. So I can't get to all of it. It is literally impossible now. At this point, I basically have an infinite amount of content to get to, so yeah, I've just kind of given up. I'm just gonna go with where my interest leads me. Regardless, hope you guys enjoy the content. But yeah, I can't do requests anymore.
Kraw's Trap Cards. We all got that one friend who only exists conceptually. The language used to write Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards is very formulaic. Text is thrown in with similar wording to pre-existing cards because it helps players understand quickly what a card is trying to do. As soon as you see a card say
thing.
add, you get what it's trying to do. It's not throwing curveballs. Sometimes, though, the verbiage can switch up, like on the new psychic support for the teleport archetype that only lets you add teleport normal and quick play spells. What we're talking about here, though, isn't when the text changes, it's actually when it stays the same. Necroz's trap cards refer to cards that implicitly exist thanks to the verbiage of support cards, but haven't been printed yet. You can teach that concept to a newborn, it's super simple. The perfect example of what I'm trying to talk about is with the concept's namesake, the Necroz trap card. Necroz of Clausulus says that it can be discarded to add a Necroz spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. But at the time of writing, Necroz doesn't actually have a trap card. Before the most recent wave of Necroz support, there wasn't even a non-ritual Necroz spell card, so it could have been shaved down even further, but wasn't. The reason they do this is because of future-proofing. If they do plan on printing a Necroz trap card at some point, then Clausulus will be able to search it, and they won't have to either errata it or make a new version to search trap cards.
Also based Witchcrafter player, but a classic move immediately gets impermed, so now you don't even have your board negate. RIP.
Some examples of Necroz trap cards can be found in Digital Bug Core Bag, requiring 2 level 5 light insect monsters to Xyz summon. Gonna be hard without even 1 level 5 light insect. Digital Bug Rhinobus was going to be in the same boat until the printing of Asset Mountis in Age of Overlord. Some that have since been fixed include Cyberdark Claw, allowing you to search Cyberdark spell traps, without a trap to search until the release of Cyberdark Invasion in the Cyberdark Structure deck 4 years after Claw's printing. Morphtronics have 2 examples of Necroz trap cards in Double Tool C&D and Junk Box, with Junk Box reviving level 4 or lower Morphtronics, while Double Tool C&D was equipable to Power Tool Dragon and level 4 or higher Morphtronic monsters. Both of these imply a level 5 Morphtronic monster, which wouldn't exist until Morphtronic Scannon in Power of the Elements 13 years later.
Holy! 13 years for a card to finally get to equip to. But yeah, like, it makes sense. They have no idea what they're going to be making in the future, and this is the plan, at least for this particular archetype, so you just gotta have to write it out, even if there isn't a target for it. It'd be a pain in the ass to go back and errata things to make sure that things work properly. Or to make things like way too specific that you just can't build upon it.
Blue Eyes Shining Dragon can only be summoned by tributing a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, a card that wouldn't be printed for 4 more years after Shining's release. This was a promo card for Yu-Gi-Oh! The movie and was completely useless until you finished college. Without a doubt, the funniest Necroz card is Wind Effigy. This follows a similar series of monsters that can act as 2 tributes for a monster of their associated attribute: Kaiser Seahorse, Trojan Horse, and even non-horse monsters like Double Costin. Wind Effigy, though, comes from a splinter branch of Effigy monsters, whose double tribute effect was only applicable to normal monsters. This is a direct downgrade, and the other 3 are all outclassed by their proper counterparts. Wind Effigy, though, is a special one, as its effect is totally useless. It can be used as 2 tributes for the normal summon of a wind normal monster. Except there are no wind monsters that require 2 tributes. The only 2 monsters who fit the bill are Rush exclusive. No wind level 7 or higher normal monsters exist. They made a card with an effect that does nothing.
Well, they didn't know at the time. They thought maybe we'd do it. But it is really funny, though, to go back and if you had that card and you're like, oh yeah, future-proofing. I'm gonna invest into this because I know it's gonna work out. And then nothing ever comes of it. I'm sure a card like that, though, isn't very expensive. As for the Blue Eyes one, I feel like that was more just a promotional card. So whether or not the effect was even usable didn't really matter. I don't think it was meant to see play.
They were so ashamed of the snafu, they printed a new monster just to make up for it. Making his court-ordered appearance in every part of this iceberg for some reason is Simorg. This time sporting the name Simorg, Bird of Ancestry. It's a pretty standard effect monster with the effect to effectively make tributes cost 1 less, and affect the opponent's monster position by putting them back in the hand with his effect.
Wait, what? 1 less tribute than required? So wait, doesn't that mean that the thing that makes it so it becomes 2 tributes is completely useless then?
Simorg is an effect monster, why is he here? Well, the very last line of text makes it so Simorg is treated as a normal monster when he's in the hand, for no other reason than to give Wind Effigy something to do. Without the...
That's really funny. Actually, now that I'm reading it though, it probably has that effect of tribute summoning wind monsters with 1 less tribute than required, only when it's on the field. So if it's in the hand, then yeah, it does require 2 tribute summons.
The spin-off Simorg, Wind Effigy is a totally pointless card. It still is pointless since Whirlwind Prodigy does what it does already, but what, were we supposed to not print Wind Effigy? OCG Structures. After Vrain's finished, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was in the most uncertain time we'd ever been in. The card game and series broke congruity for the first time ever, and it threw everything into doubt. What would packs look like going forward without an anime to base them on? What would fill the anime slot? What was going to promote new product if the anime wasn't? We eventually got answers to all of those questions, with the last one being solved by OCG Structures. OCG Structures is a Japan-exclusive manga written and illustrated by Masashi Sato, the same person responsible for the 5Ds manga. From an art perspective, reading the series is an interesting ride of seeing how Sato's style evolves from being a one-for-one copy of Takahashi's into being its own thing. The art at the beginning is clean, but still lacking polish, with the odd panel every now and again sticking out. But in the later volumes, the art really comes into its own, especially since so many of the monsters he draws aren't the normal type you'd see in the average Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga. OCG Structures takes place in modern-day Japan, with our protagonist, Shoma Yusa, moving there with his family and getting into the local Yu-Gi-Oh! Scene. You heard that, Yu-Gi-Oh!, not duel monsters, because OCG Structures follows the actual rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! This is a manga that is meant...
Oh, okay. How accurate does it follow it, though? Because honestly, I might have to put this on my reading list then. That seems kind of interesting to see how differently things would play out if we truly follow the rules.
To as closely as possible emulate the card game it's promoting. Along with the rule set and adjustments, like bumping up to the standard 8,000 life points, the card pool they play is the same that we have. In Chapter 1, Yusa has to pick between Simorg, Marincess, and Tenyi, since he just bought a box of the actual set, Rising Rampage. His first duel sees him getting bombarded by the fucking channel mascot Simorg as he stares down both Big Birds and Mist Valley Apex Avion, a card that isn't a part of the archetype. When in any other series could you remember a character playing an out-of-theme staple card because it was good? When did you ever...
That's actually a good point. Oh my god, he used Max C? This fucking bitch! No, called my...
Think you were going to see a Yu-Gi-Oh! Character get Max C'd and respond appropriately? Having the duels play out like duels somebody would realistically have makes the series a really strange but kind of cool read. Like, this is what Konami envisions high-level Yu-Gi-Oh! Being. Well, maybe not high-level.
Oh god, we got a Drytron board here. This is kind of an interesting Drytron board. I don't think Drytron usually ends on this.
I can't exactly imagine somebody sitting across from Post-Lightning Overdrive Drytron with Ursartic and saying, my ass isn't getting kicked today. The cast as well is a fun assortment of different characters. My favorite is obviously Yami Kuroda, who sells his edgelord persona by vomiting up fake blood in the middle of a duel. Even the other characters have to step in and say, it's not that serious, dude, you just lost Final Sigma. The strength of the series, though...
But look, dude, it is a vibe, right? When you get into a game so much that you just start making sound effects of actually getting hurt. I mean, I do that all the time when I'm streaming because, it just makes it way more fun.
Is its variety, since it looks like the main character will be sticking with Tenyi after the first 2 duels, but by the third has already switched up to Structure Deck Geminis. That is a phrase that makes no sense to Westerners because they've been breaking up terrible structure decks like that and Agents and giving them to us in normal packs instead. It's fine that he switches up his decks though, since, while it might be for marketing reasons, it's really fun to get to see Yusa interact with his various decks. It gives cards that are likely to never see play in an anime or something like that personality. Like watching the Tenyis fly with the Yangzings because the 2 archetypes have synergy. It's cute. The whole series is a pretty low-stakes affair, as it wants to make dueling look as fun as possible for the people picking it up who might want to learn. It even includes the script for the duel itself, so the people learning can follow along for how to play their new cards.
Cool.
The series is only available in Japan as of now, but if it sounds interesting, I recommend finding a fan translation and checking it out. OCG Stories. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is holding a wealth of interesting stories to tell within its cards.
100%. That's one of the things that got me into Yu-Gi-Oh! In the first place.
And we've tackled a lot of them. From the small Skull Servant side stories, to the huge ones like the Albaz and Diabellstar stories. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has done an incredible job of telling stories with no words outside of effect text. Now imagine the power they could unleash if they did have words!
Oh my
OCG
god.
Stories is the response to Konami's constant question, why don't we just make the manga about the cards instead of playing with them?
Wait, they actually did it? I didn't think they would. That's something I've always been wanting. Like, actually make something based on whatever story the cards are trying to tell. Like, obviously, it's not going to replace the people playing the game, because they kind of have to sell the cards in the first place. But having some sort of side series that is just about the monsters themselves could really help people get more attached to them and, find their favorite archetypes from that. Maybe invest a little.
This is a manga that instead of following Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters, or even people playing the game like with OCG Structures, follows the storylines they're depicting in the cards. Like how Masashi Sato was working on Structures, stories would be handled by the 2 mangaka responsible for the Zexal and Arc 5 mangas, Shin Yoshida and Naohito Miyoshi. The first OCG story released was for Sky Striker, an absurdly popular deck that revolves around these pilots switching between different Link monsters depending on the situation, and innovating the term waifu tax. Stories expands on that a lot more by making the main monster Rei the final human left on the planet, raised in a village of robots called Karma. An opposing nation called Spectra previously let an AI decide their war tactics, which allowed them to create a weapon to exterminate all of humanity save for Rei, and made AIs the dominant species on the planet. Spectra has finally broken through the defenses that Karma had set up, and to save her AI family, Rei adopts the ancient powers of the Sky Strikers in order to fight back. Just like with Structures, Stories is an interesting look at how an artist who emulates Takahashi's style diverges when the subject changes so radically. Takahashi's work rarely delved into heavy technological designs, but with the series being hardcore sci-fi, it has loads of robotic designs that are interesting, cool, and intricate.
If you guys like sci-fi manga and haven't seen it yet, I do highly recommend checking out Blam. Now, fair warning, it's more grimdark sci-fi, but it has like some of the greatest art that I've seen in a manga. And such an interesting way of storytelling through backgrounds. Like, you can't really, at least I don't really know any other series that can do it that well. Like, sure, there's world building, but not full-on storytelling. But yeah, if you like sci-fi and you haven't seen it yet, check out Blam.
The humans as well are still recognizably in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Style, while slowly taking on their own style as the chapters go on. The storyline isn't anything groundbreaking, but it's a standard plot done well. Rey becoming colder and more distant after becoming a warrior, the robots making their own human to combat Rey, the two teaming up in the end, it's good solid writing. Even if you don't care for Sky Strikers, like me, I still enjoyed reading it and think it's worth checking out.
It doesn't have to be groundbreaking, it just has to tell the story that it needs to tell. And from what Bumbles is saying here, I'd assume that it has achieved that. I do think there are definitely some stories in Yu-Gi-Oh cards that can be way more compelling. So hopefully those have been adapted, and we haven't just, adapted the Sky Strikers. If we stopped here, that would be kind of a shame.
Again, via fan translations, since Konami seems to think we'd have no interest in this. If you can't imagine your eyes moving between all those panels, you can also check out the Yu-Gi-Oh! Chronicles animation that loosely adapts the story, going back to the original method of removing all words, for some reason. After 19 chapters, the Sky Striker story would wrap up, and in its place would come the Magistus story. Based on one of the most underwhelming but lore-important archetypes in the game, Magistus. The archetype gave us the origins for two of Yu-Gi-Oh's most iconic spellcasters, Endymion and Alistair the Invoker. Vere is there too, bullying Duel Links. The three were once part of a group fighting to keep the world safe from dangerous magics, including their former friend Zoroa.
Actually, isn't that the main boss monster for Witchcrafters? Pretty sure I recognize that name.
Around where the story between Zoroa and the Magistus ends, though, and around the same number of chapters Sky Striker reached, the story time skips forward to follow Endymion's son, who's rebelling against his father, as the former friends are fractured and a new evil is threatening the world. While I don't appreciate them casting Endymion as the bad guy when Vere is right over there, I will say that this is another interesting story to tell, and
no idea what happened there.
See where it goes with this new generation story. I'd like to say more, but the finer details of the story are better left unspoiled and read about.
Cool. So, at least it's not just Sky Striker.
Caricature cards. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not a game you should get into if you're poor. Decks can cost hundreds of dollars, with individual cards taking up a lion's share of that price point. Staple cards in the main and extra deck frequently outprice movies, music, video games, and then you have to buy 2 more copies for it to be worth anything. Then there's the matter of getting to a high-level competitive event requiring you to pay out of pocket for room and board, as well as admission to the event itself, all so you can go 0-2 and scrub out day 1 because you bricked 4 games in a row. But what if you...
It's just the nature of card games, man. It always sucks when your luck is down, and regardless of how you build your deck, you just can't find the right ones. It's always bottom 20.
You were able to get to the top of the mountain, beat the rest, and top a YCS or WCQ. Surely the world's riches are just waiting to be dropped into your lap. Here's your itemized bill. I was very close to making this its own section, but yeah, let's talk about how Yu-Gi-Oh! Players are all destitute. So unlike a TCG like Magic or Pokemon that's able to properly compensate its top players with money alongside prizing, Yu-Gi-Oh! Can't do that. Why? Oh, nobody knows. And maybe their financial manager is Air Neos and nobody can find his number.
Interesting. So you don't actually win any sort of money by winning a YCS? So I guess you're really just there for the love of the game and whatever commemorative trophy that they give you?
Theories, and I must stress theories because none of these have ever been confirmed, range from Kazuki Takahashi personally denying it, since he found that playing cards for money was saved for gambling, to Shueisha not wanting to shell out the money, or not being allowed to pay players.
Theory-wise, I can maybe see Takahashi saying something along those lines where it's, it's supposed to be a card game to have fun and play, not to compete against each other for actual money. But it's theory time. I would assume it probably has some sort of legal reason. And if people are going to play, even if there isn't a prize money there, then why would you offer any? Unless if you really want to attract people. But I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is big enough where they don't really need to do that.
Either way, it's left Yu-Gi-Oh! In a place where it's ruthlessly mocked for what it rewards the best of the best with. You got Lorcana paying down a mortgage with top 64 results, while the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Can provide is usually a Nintendo Switch or Steam Deck. You can flip that for a decent amount, but it's not going to be a very easy job to explain at Christmas dinner. Oh, yeah. So what do you do for a job? Oh, I sell Nintendo Switches. Neat. Do you do it at GameStop or Target? eBay and pawn shops mostly. You might get a rare and exclusive card that might be worth something to a reseller or investor, but these are not the things that make for the livable wages other TCG players get. Magic players' jobs is to play Magic. Yu-Gi-Oh! Players' jobs is to find out which non-vital organs are worth the most.
Yeah, I also never really knew this about the other TCGs, that you're earning enough money to, I guess, sustain yourself. I think that's pretty cool, actually. I thought it was always more of a hobby thing with fun competition and some prize money alongside, but if you can just make a full-time job out of it, then hell yeah. I wonder how much they make comparatively to, say, like an FGC player.
A popular meme went around when a Yu-Gi-Oh! Locals was holding an event, with the first place finish being a rice cooker. Woohoo! Free copper wire! Konami has had some good ideas for player prizing, though. One that was done only once, and whose validity has been in question for the better part of 2 decades. The caricature cards. Our story takes us back to Japan in 2000 for the second National Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament, an event that has been very poorly archived, save for a few snippets from Weekly Jump 2000 from around the time, explaining the gist of the event. It was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament, with the twist of the top 3 players getting the chance to have their likenesses turned into Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. The top 3 would end up getting their likenesses turned into Tomohiro the Mountain Warrior, Yasushi the Skull Knight, and the champion Masahiro Akamoto would get Masahiro the Dark Clown. The 3 would get one-of-a-kind cards with both the duelists' faces and a little quote from them below the effects. That's true oddity and an amazing piece of Yu-Gi-Oh! History. Their validity, though, was brought into question by who else but Kevin Tewart, who, between claiming credit for the creation of the Skull Servants, took to Pojo to claim the caricature cards were fake. At least he did for Yasushi the Skull Knight after somebody brought it up in a thread discussing fun Yu-Gi-Oh! Facts, and said that people would believe anything as long as it was on a wiki. I don't appreciate the implication. This brought the validity of the cards into question until people went back and looked through an unlikely source: a ban list. For the ban list of the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship, several cards were listed as forbidden for international play for various reasons, either being unavailable in either the TCG or OCG, or simply not being widely available outside of a video game promo. On this list in 2010, recognized as real official cards by Konami, were the caricature cards, confirming they were indeed real and that Kevin was wrong. Konami has made some moves to improve its tournament prizing after—
Okay, as an aside, why does Kevin think that he knows everything? Like, my guy, if you don't know something, you can just admit that you don't know. This dude just keeps on digging his grave with, like, every single post that he makes. It's kind of sad, actually. Not that you should condemn people for, like, making a single mistake or anything like that. Like, we're human, that's what we do. But I feel like there's a very clear pattern of behavior here.
High-profile players left the game over lack of incentive and dwindling attendance numbers, but if they want to make people feel better, they could at least do something like this again.
Yeah, I did say before that they probably don't need a prize pool because people are going to play it anyways. But if the really skilled people are leaving because they can just play any other card game and make way more money, and you know, they just love playing card games, not specifically Yu-Gi-Oh!, and they're really good at it, then yeah, I play the one that offers the most prize pool. Money is kind of necessary to live. I wonder if that'll ever change in the future, but considering its long history, probably not.
Ubel's German gibberish. Yu-Gi-Oh! In any language seems to go wrong, but sure, let's focus on the Germans. Mistranslations in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are a common problem. Monsters will be given the wrong effects, names, attributes, types. Loads can go wrong when it comes to translation. Language is a complicated thing, and it's not always one for one on how things will sound in their native language.
Well, sounding and meaning, like, some things you just can't culturally convey because there hasn't been a word that is even invented to portray that idea. So especially when it comes to these effect monsters with, like, made-up names and implied things within whatever cultural language that it's being translated to, yeah, there's gotta be a lot of missteps here and there occasionally.
A great example that I would have loved to make its own fact, if I could have just verified it, was with the card Dark Necrofear. This was the boss monster of Bakura's occult deck, and needed a fittingly creepy name. That's why in the first run of issues of the January 29th Weekly Shonen Jump, she was instead called Dark Necrophilia. Yeah, that's the one you're thinking of. Now, I say I can't verify this one because, like I said, this was only ever in the original run of that issue of Shonen Jump. The volume releases in Japanese, both the black and white and color versions, use Necrofear's new name, and no scans online exist of the previous issue. A lot of people have said that fact, but without the proper citation, I'm not confident in reporting on it. Some very real examples, though, include the war between Italy and Spain over their languages, where what sounds normal in one is filthy in the other. The Dark Magician support card, Magician's Rod in Italian, is called Verga da Mago, which is an accurate translation of Magician's Rod.
Okay.
If you read that in Spanish, though, the card is now called Magician's Cock. The Portuguese had a bad one, where Black Dragon's chick, back when it was legally referred to as Red Eye's Black Chick, went by Pinto Negro de Ojos Vermelhos. Pinto Negro means black dick. Back with Spanish, and you have cards like Golden Ladybug and Lady D-Bug, which should have the Spanish word mariquita in there somewhere, because that's the Spanish word for ladybug.
Excuse me, what the hell was that?
Except mariquita also is used as a gay slur. Like, the worst one you can use, so...
Well, that's always going to happen. It is just something funny that I find where there are certain words you say in a language and in another language it's just like a vulgar word or some sort of a horrible slang, racial slur. There are too many examples to really list off. That's just the way of things, unfortunately. But I get that when it comes to translations, especially for a card game meant for children, you kinda need to not imply these kind of things. Actually, before we move on from this section, there is a funny little thing when it comes to Thai and English. So, a popular example of this is the word fuck, which in Thai actually means like gourd. I believe that's a more direct translation of it. So you'd say something like fuck tong if you were referring to a golden gourd, which is essentially a pumpkin. But obviously in English, we know what it means. Like it sounds very much like that. So there's this rapper who took the name of Fakling Hero, which basically means gourd rolling hero. But of course, you know, it's also a play on words.
Each one had to find a workaround. Lady D-Bug found it by using the scientific name for a ladybug, while Golden Ladybug itself was called Vaca da Sant'Antonio Dorada. This translates to Golden San Antonio Cow, because in Argentina, ladybugs are called San Antonio's little cows.
Okay.
However, the king of weird and funny translations is Germany. The German language just doesn't agree with Yu-Gi-Oh! On any level and has been rebelling against tongues for its entire history. Let's start off with an easy one. Junk Synchron is one word in German, and it's Gerumpelsynchronisierung. There are also the ones that are funnier in English than they are in German, because German is a lot funnier in English. Spear Idiot! You've seen Wild Tornado, Wilder Tornado,
Hey.
Ojama Pink, Pinker Ojama. Germany is beating us at everything. The word six being pronounced sex has led to cards like Maximum Sex, Portal der Sex, Bisex Shinobi, really just not worth looking at the Six Samurai if I'm being honest. The Noble Knight's Field spell, Sorry, I meant the other Noble Knight field spell.
The hell's that?
Sorry, I meant the other Noble Knight field
Jesus.
spell. Camelot has a very long and very German name, which translates to Camelot, where a noble knight and noble weapons dwell, changing the plural noble knights into a singular. Yeah, there's Artorigus, and he's cool, but the rest are real pieces of shit. The continuous spell Clockwork Knight was translated into Udwerk Ritter, which means Clockwork Knight, with a K, as in a noble knight. The one. This was a fine but inaccurate translation until that Clockwork Knight was printed as a Link monster.
Oh,
and
shit.
the translation had to pivot into saying these were knights of the clockwork. Also, because of how German is a gendered
Loophole.
language, adjectives will change based on the gender of the noun they're affecting. The most basic example is in how there's der, das, and die. The three ways to say the that are masculine, feminine, and neutral. Archetypes
Gotcha.
like Fable, then, have multiple different archetypal descriptors to determine which version of the name they use based on the monster's name. Oh, that's why we have the females list. An example is Fabled
Definitely.
Cruz being Sagenhaft Cruz, while Fabled Leviathan is Sagenhafter Leviathan. But then you have Ancient Gears, who also have this, despite all of them clearly being robots.
So how are you gonna do this? Oh god, we must determine the gender of these gears.
Antekes, Anteker, and Antek being used for neutral, masculine, and feminine names, respectively. This means that cards like Catapult are neutral, Gadgeltron Dragon is masculine, and Ballista is feminine.
Oh.
God, they're force-femming the Ancient Gears. That's why I say it's based on the names rather than something like artwork, because Ballista is given the feminine tag because it sounds more feminine. Like monsters
I
like
see.
Ancient Gear Hydra and Ancient Gear Box.
Cultural thing, yeah.
What did you mean by saying Ancient Gear Box is feminine? What if I told you, though, the biggest flub wasn't the translation of Japanese into German, but German into Japanese? Our culprit is Yubel, Yu-Gi-Oh! World Champion, level 10 Dark Fiend, and character you'd think would be handled a lot worse for being an intersex character from the 2000s, but then you remember they're pretty much just Baron Ashura from Manzinger Z, and you get a little bit less scared. One trait of Yubel that doesn't
Haven't seen that
translate
one.
into the English versions of the names is that Yubel has a heavy use of German in its Japanese names. Terror Incarnate is called Yubel, das Eibschlick Ritter, and Ultimate Nightmare is called Das Extremer Tarek Draken. Now I know that anybody who knows a lick of German has probably had their ears covered for the whole section for how bad I'm butchering their native tongue, but this one is uniquely bad. Not because I'm doing a bad job, I am, but because these phrases don't make any sense. Terror Incarnate's name translates to the Detestable Knight, and Ultimate Nightmare is the Extremely Sad Dragon. These aren't very good descriptors,
Okay.
but moreover, in German, they're just words. Like, these aren't phrases, they're just strung together words without any grammatical sense.
So
The
it doesn't.
equivalent
Okay,
would be
I
if they
see.
used English instead of German, and the Japanese name for the card was Yubel the Hardcore Sense Miserable Dragon. If you want an idea about how bad
That sounds like a Yu-Gi-Oh name.
the translation job is, the German translation doesn't go based off of it. It just
Damn.
translates the TCG names. Why they were translated like this is likely down to a lack of resources and research on behalf of Konami. Back in 2008, when the Yubel cards were released, the amount of widely available resources for translation weren't as high as they are now. Google
fair.
Translate, for as barely as it works now, would have still given you better results than what we were given here. The reasoning most likely is that they weren't picked because they made sense, but because they sounded cool.
I mean, that's a very valid way to name something. And isn't names basically just sounds that you use to refer to a particular person, place, or thing?
Result is a process where you were just taking words out of a dictionary and putting them together with no regard for how a sentence would actually be formed. This is translation by way of Naruto fan-subbing. There is a secondary explanation. Since German is a gendered language, and das in German is the gender-neutral term for the, their choice to use das which is one of the major grammatical errors with the cards, is actually a way to play into Yubel's gender identity. Maybe, but that sounds a lot like wishful thinking. Let's just focus on the best translation of all time, my friend Pearly into mi amigo Pearly. Bring out Rechoncho! Joey's shoes. A lot has been—
What the fuck? I don't know if I have any interest in Joey's shoes. But okay, maybe there's some lore behind this.
Made about the pop culture inspirations Yu-Gi-Oh! Takes from multiple sources. But sometimes their references so obscure or so lost in translation that they go over most people's heads. What would you say is Joey's most defining character design trait? Maybe his hair, his green jacket,
shoes?
the shirt he wears during Battle City? Or what about his shoes? I bet nobody here has paid a second of attention to Joey's shoes before, but if you read the original manga, you'd have known these shoes were a big deal. Chapter 8 has Joey, Tristan, and Yugi searching the bad side of town for a seller who sold rare and expensive sneakers. They're looking because Joey wants to buy the newest, most expensive sneakers on the cheap, the Air Muscles. The shop owner says he'll sell them to him at a discount
Air Jordans?
if he's brave enough to stick his foot into the shoe with the owner's pet scorpion inside.
What
Joey
the hell?
goes for it, and the owner sells the shoes to him at a discount, around $800. Right after he's left the shop, though, Joey gets jumped by a group called the Muscle Hunters and has the shoes stolen right off of his feet.
No!
Joey and Tristan hunt the guys down in an arcade and beat them up, only to find out that the guy who hired the Muscle Hunters was
The
the
owner?
shop owner.
Yep.
He sells the shoes at a discount, has his goons rough up who buys them, and then puts them back on the shelves. Dark Yugi takes over from there and beats the owner in a game of put coins in a shoe and then try to get the coins out of the shoe, but there's a scorpion
What?
in the shoe, so don't let it sting you. Gonna be a side event next to Attack of the Giant card. He returns the
Okay.
shoes to Joey, and out of thanks, wears them despite the giant knife hole in one of them. Sounds pretty cut and dry, but this
Okay.
chapter actually
I see.
influences the rest of the series, because Joey made good on his promise. From this chapter forward, Joey
Always
is
has to wear
always
them.
drawn wearing the Air Muscles Yugi got for him.
That's cool.
It's not super easy to make out the details, but a close enough look shows they're the same shoes. This extends to the anime as well, as taking a look at Joey's model sheet shows he's definitely wearing the Air Muscles. And just to make sure, I watched Dark Side of Dimensions again, he still has them on. On its own, a cute piece of attention to detail. But there is so much more to Joey's sneakers than you'd know. Like how
Uh-oh.
this chapter was based on a real thing that happened. Air Muscles are based on
What?
the 95 Nike Air Max sneakers.
Oh,
Not just
okay.
design-wise, but also event-wise. These sneakers were stupid expensive in Japan. Frequently
Really?
costing around 600,000 yen or $4,000.
Holy shit! What the for a shoe? $4,000? What the hell? You know, a 5090 Ti is already expensive enough, but like, imagine getting two of them. But instead of getting two of those, you just get a shoe. Like, what? Why was it that expensive?
The trade-off was that having them was the ultimate status symbol to young adults and kids in Japan.
So, did we just mark up the price to make it a premium product that only the rich and powerful could have? I guess that's a way to market something, but I don't know. I'm not going to buy into that. I don't need those kind of shoes.
So kids who couldn't afford the sneakers but wanted the credit did what they had to do.
Holy
Beat the
shit.
fuck out of anybody caught wearing them and stealing their sneakers. This was a big problem in 1995 Japan. Magazines wrote articles about it, TV shows conducted live experiments, and got footage of celebrities being beaten up and robbed by Air Max hunters. It was horrible. Once the trend died down 2 years later, Takahashi would include this very real event as a plot point in Yu-Gi-Oh! This was meant to be a big stinger to end out the section, but in between putting out this list and now, they're real! Nike announced an official collaboration with Yu-Gi-Oh! To release authentic Air muscles based on the 95 Air Max design.
Wow.
These would come in 2 different variants depending on the region, with the Joey version releasing in America and the Jonoichi version releasing in Japan, each coming with exclusive cards called Winds of Victory and Trap of the Poisonous Scorpion in exclusive Nike rarity by including the swish design in the effect text similar to what Adidas did. Will this cause another spike in sneaker-related beatings in the future? Yes.
I hope not.
And if you see me at the sight of one, no you didn't.
Bumbles, no! But yeah, that's just crazy to me, man. I guess people will still continue to be people. We do these horrible things to others, all for a freaking shoe. Yeah, I can't imagine. I know that there are some people out there who are just like really into shoes. And I guess if you're poor, you'd definitely be into these if you could like resell them somehow. I guess I just don't really get it because I've always had like, well, really big feet. So I could never be picky about what I could wear. As long as they had something in the shop that fit me, I would just have to take it regardless of what it looked like or like how expensive it was. Which usually not too expensive. The ones that were expensive were the ones that I had to like import because they don't sell my size here in Thailand. Which now that I think about it, I did get a pair of shoes stolen before. And they definitely weren't stealing it to wear it. Also, I don't think they got such a great deal because they couldn't resell it to anybody, too. So, whoever did that, I hope you're happy with the giant-ass shoes that you have now.
Transcend Game. Released in 2016 as promotion for Dark Side of Dimensions, Transcend Game is a prequel manga that seeks to connect the ending of the manga to the beginning of the movie, showing us 6 months before the events of Dark Side of Dimensions. The manga follows Kaiba's production of the next generation of Dual Disc, able to link people together all over the world by tapping into their brainwaves and using it to connect to a cloud network that turns their thoughts into reality. The results of this are a weird sort of MMO where duelists can choose to be whatever they imagine and form guilds together based on whatever they choose to be. Kaiba is testing this on about 200,000 children and having them stress test the servers by all playing at once. One duelist named Plana is wrecking shop, which Kaiba finds interesting, but still plans on eliminating for balance purposes. It turns out, though, that Plana is actually Sarah, Aigami's sister from Dark Side of Dimensions. She tells Kaiba about the idea of a superior consciousness that transcends dimensions being introduced to the game, which is when the real purpose of it is revealed. Enough people are playing the game and submitting their consciousness that Kaiba's able to pull it all together to try to engineer a way to duel a Tem again, essentially using the players as batteries to recreate the past. It ends up failing, though, which prompts Kaiba to try again, which leads into the events of the movie. On its own, Transcend Game is an interesting story, especially with it being an original story illustrated by Kazuki Takahashi, but what it actually develops into is even more interesting. See, the name of the game Kaiba is developing is called
Duel Links?
Duel Links. And not long after DSOD's release, Duel Links, the actual mobile game, was launched.
Cool.
The in-universe explanation for the creation of Duel Links is the same as in Transcend Game. Kaiba made it as a way for people to duel all over the world, including the people he knows like Yugi.
But wait, from a more meta perspective, doesn't that mean that Kaiba is basically using us in order to achieve his own goals here? By playing Duel Links?
If the game takes place after the ending of Darkside, and Kaiba's in possession of the quantum cube that Aigami had, then he could have used it to collect souls, and eventually implement them into the game as living, breathing AIs. This is supported by the release structure of the characters in Duel Links. It starts with living people like Joey, Mai, Rex, and Weevil, but soon characters like Bandit Keith and Pegasus were added. If this follows the manga's canon, these guys are dead. Kaiba then would have had to find a way to implement them, and the cube is the best explanation. This also explains how Duel Links was able to seemingly resurrect people whose deaths were a mystery, like the Bracelet Girls of Arc 5 or Yubel. If you want to push the theory even further, it's possible that the Kaiba we follow in Duel Links isn't the original Kaiba, but an AI recreation that he uploaded as a precaution before leaving at the end of Dark Side of Dimensions. And Duel Links has just been updating itself as the time passes.
Okay, you know what? I choose to believe in this theory. It makes the game a lot more cooler. Like, I'm sure these decisions were made with business in mind and money making and stuff like that. But if there's some way that you can tie it into some cool lore that we had introduced in a side story, then yeah, I'd definitely take it. Well, not really a side story, more like a prequel to a movie. But yeah, regardless, cool reason for the game to exist.
This is the explanation for how characters from the far future, like in 5Ds and Zexal, can show up, or dimensional counterparts like in Arc 5. Duel Links acts as a sort of stasis world where the events of the past are allowed to play out in a controlled environment on loop, with Astral even commenting on that when Yuma has to do a second number hunt. He realizes that somebody intentionally re-triggered this key event in their lives. Leave it to Yu-Gi-Oh! To try to think of a lore reason why the events repeat sometimes. There's a Reddit thread made by Kraken437 that goes into more detail and where a majority of this theory comes from. So if it sounds interesting, feel free to check it out.
Cool.
Also, try to keep up with the new releases of Duel Links, since following the end of the Vrains anime, they've started using Duel Links as a way to tie up loose character threads and reunite all the duelists with their Ignis.
Oh.
Toxic Taya in Duel Links.
What?
And apparently when she was scanned into Duel Links, Taya was having a real f***ing bad day and has taken out her aggression on the helpless players of Duel Links.
Okay.
Skills in Duel Links are a very hard idea to balance around. They're not cards in the game, you always have access to them once their conditions have been met, they're unrespondable, unnegatable, and often have game-shifting effects.
Yeah.
They can be balanced around those conditions of their activation, but if the effects are strong enough, who cares? Often skills are made to break the balance that does exist for an archetype, like Sartorius's Master of Fate skill that makes all coin flips land on heads. The cards he used, like Desperado Barrel Dragon, are balanced around the unlikelihood that you score 3 heads. What happens when that's all but guaranteed? You get a meta deck that had to have its cards limited and skills nerfed. They said that if you played Sartorius, you got Pot of Greed. How was this ever legal? Weevil's Parasite skill was used a lot in early Duel Links because adding the Parasite to the opponent's deck made it that little bit less consistent that could sometimes make sure he won the game. You also have
I guess that's fair, especially considering the smaller card size of the deck, that adding any sort of cards to it would reduce its consistency.
Have the skills that essentially make their decks work, like the ones that add vital extra deck monsters to your deck at the start of a duel, or that get a deck's game plan going like the Shiranui or Shadal skill. With all of those various skills though, there's only one character who is on again off again menaced Duel Links. Miss 100% win rate, Taya Gardner. Taya has the highest concentration of bullshit strategies and skills this side of Weevil Underwood, and even more impressively, has become an unbearable threat at multiple points in Duel Links history.
I never knew this.
The first one was from the very beginning of Duel Links history, Taya Burn. Taya Burn might be the most simple deck to explain ever. It's just burn cards.
That's
the whole
pretty
deck
toxic.
has nothing but spell and traps that burn, and monsters that burn on summon, like Gravekeeper's Curse and Needleball. This was a deck that could have been used by anybody, but Taya had a skill that made the deck extremely common to see. Duel Standby starts the duel with both players having an additional card in their hand, which gives you an additional card to burn the opponent with, but also make sure the opponent loses even faster. The linchpin in Duel Standby Taya Burn was Restructor Revolution. This card deals 200 damage for every card in the opponent's hand.
I see.
In a normal duel, that's 800 damage. But with Dual
1,000.
Standby, it becomes 1,000, a fourth of the way to a win already. Early Dual Links was so crude that depending on what the opponent had, this was an FTK. The opponent couldn't stop you before you were able to activate all those burn cards. Dual Standby would again come up in the next Toxic Taya strat, Woodland Sprite FTK. This took the card Woodland Sprite, which deals 500 damage by sending equips to the grave, and loaded it with the Bamboo Sword engine, which are basically pots of greed at the
yeah. I've only seen Bamboo Sword with like the Panda Tomb Explorer thing in Exodia decks. Don't really see them used anywhere else outside of that.
price of running a card that does nothing. You'd equip Bamboo Swords, use Golden Bamboo, draw cards, equip Soul Devouring Bamboo Sword, send it for Sprite, get more Golden Swords, and eventually draw into black pendants that would burn naturally when sent to the grave. Dual Standby was again used as the perfect way to get an extra card and stop the opponent from ever getting the one they'd get as well. Konami thankfully nerfed Dual Standby to stop the strategy, along with the banning of Sprite and Golden Bamboo Sword. And Dual Standby would never be used to break another card. Later on, though, the card Amano Iwato was released. A monster that blanket stopped the activation of all monster effects. Hand, field, grave, deck, no dice. They couldn't be activated.
Oh, I see, okay.
The trade-off was that Amano Iwato was a spirit monster, and has to deal with the blanket restriction on spirits where they have to return to the hand after the turn they're normal summoned. The deck Amano Iwato Stun would eventually sprout up, which was all about keeping Amano Iwato on the field so it didn't return by its spirit effect. And the skill used for this? Dual Standby. Dual Standby had been nerfed to stop the FTKs by saying you got the additional card at the price of not being able to activate spell, trap, or monster effects during your first turn. And here's the problem.
So Amano Iwato's effect of bouncing back to your hand doesn't even activate, so it just stays on field. I see.
Amano Iwato's effect to return to the hand is activated at the end of the turn.
Gotcha.
But if you have Dual Standby as your skill, you can't activate monster effects. So instead of returning to the hand, Amano Iwato would stay on the field and not go back. The effect to return to the hand only applies on the turn it's normal summoned. If a spirit stays on the field after it's normal summoned, it's pretty much free to stick around forever, provided you can protect it. And that was the backbone of Amano Iwato stun decks. Defend Amano Iwato at all costs. Traps like Wiretap and Disarm stopped effects from destroying it, Concurring Currents made it strong enough to survive attacks, and Guardian Iados was an easy-to-summon beater to clean up whatever was left, including the opponent. After the strength of Amano Iwato's stun was understood, Dual Standby was nerfed again to now no longer allow you to normal summon on your first turn, killing any practicality the skill had. But Taya was not finished yet.
Oh my goodness.
The final Taya deck I wanted to talk about was when Taya became the master of the Mech Knight strategy. Mech Knights are an archetype with the gimmick of freely special summoning themselves to zones that have 2 or more cards in the same column. So if the opponent and you have both set a spell trap in the same column as each other, you can summon a Mech Knight to it. This makes them really capable of spamming the field, under the condition that the opponent also has stuff to play. But that's not guaranteed, and going first, Mech Knights kinda can't do anything. So to get around this, Mech Knight players used the Taya skill, Surprise Present. This shifted control of a set card you had to your opponent and put it on their side of the field. Before Mech Knights, this was used to give your opponent a copy of Localized Tornado in the hopes they'd assume you stacked all 5 pieces of Exodia on top of each other and slid it across the table. With Taya, though, they now had the ability to summon out a Mech Knight by giving the opponent a trap they couldn't activate, further hindering them by clogging their back row. The trap of choice was often Assault Mode Activate, part of the extremely consistent and strong Assault Mode engine that was made popular in Duel Links. even giving you a synchro monster in the extra monster zone, which made summoning mech knights even easier. Surprise Present itself was eventually nerfed as well, only usable from turn 3 onwards. Of all of the Taya strategies from today, this was the most beloved and has even seen itself getting fan art. You might have the chance to play against this deck, so beggars can't be choosers.
Oh, is it still going? I guess it's not as toxic as the previous ones, because you still have some sort of counterplay to it, but just like a burn FTK deck, I feel like just breaks the game. Like, that's not something that you can really interact with.
Best part? These are Taya's only exclusive skills. She has 2, and both of them have been nerfed. She really does have a 100% win record. Yu-Gi-Oh! Blog file name Easter eggs. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Blog is a now defunct platform that used to host a load of interesting and fun articles. We had Konami doing write-ups of tournament results, unveiling new cards with explanations for how they were meant to be used, strategy articles, and sneak peeks. This was a really good way to introduce cards to Americans. There would even be more interesting and candid looks at Yu-Gi-Oh! Card design. I can't find it now, but there was an article talking about Link summoning when it was coming out, and referred back to the wave of cards in Cyberdark Impact that cared about what column they were in. They outright said, yeah, it was a design experiment developed by Konami that didn't work out and was abandoned until we could rework it into Link monsters.
Neat.
If you're deep enough into a Yu-Gi-Oh!
You gotta start from somewhere, right? You test out some ideas, if it doesn't stick, then reiterate upon it.
Iceberg to be on layer 5 though, you're probably already frequenting r/Yu-Gi-Oh! For your card reveals the second they get released in Japan, instead of waiting for months for a blurb that says, this card will really boost Dark Magician strategies. Then why was it the blog's card reveals were so popular? Just as popular as the newer card releases coming out of Japan on r/Yu-Gi-Oh! Back when I was seriously getting into Yu-Gi-Oh!, I remember these blog posts being posted despite already knowing everything there was to know about the cards thanks to OCG results and testing. Why go back and read a less informative piece? Well, it's because the Yu-Gi-Oh! Blog actually had Easter eggs baked into the site. A few of the different writers for the site that put the articles together would hide Easter eggs in the articles in the form of the titles of the PNGs of the cards they would use. As an example, the file name for the card Trishula, talking about its reprint in Duelist Saga, titled The Image, you might remember me from decks such as every 5D's era synchro deck. They'd reference popular memes, quote movies, even just act as a way for employees to voice their opinions.
That's a lot of fun.
They'd often poke fun at various aspects of the community, like the constant reprinting of foolish burial goods to the point it lost all value, or the backlash against Mech Knight Avram. The Japanese flavor text of the card had a small soliloquy about Avram's role in freeing the world from darkness and how it was his duty to defend the stars. In the TCG, it just says, check this out! The blog post for his final evolution, Mech Knight Crusadia Avramax, was titled,
That's a good
check
card.
that out!
Oh my.
The card Destiny Hero Dark Angel is a monster with an oppressive lockdown effect that keeps the other player out of the duel if it's allowed to resolve.
Damn.
The blog's response is in the file name, at least Kaiser is gone, referring to how Kaiser Coliseum had been banned. Fantastical Dragon Phantasme was revealed around the height of the...
Assuming in TCG. I do recall using it in Master Duel. And yes, I was a part of the evil. There was a time where I used that in Sky Striker as well as True Draco. I'm sure at that point I had just gotten sick of combo decks, not gonna lie. I just wanted to play something simpler and to mess with some people.
Hype for Infinity War, and as a result, people were already nicknaming him the Thanos Dragon, thanks to his purple skin.
Yeah,
the file name for the card was No Gauntlet Required. The best one, though, comes from the reveal of new train cards in Sisters of the Rose. This collection of train cards seems to have a completely random string of numbers as its name, but putting it into Google reveals it's actually the ISBN for the little engine that could. The efforts of authors like Michael Cohenim, Robert Boyajian, and Jason Graber-Meyer really made these blog posts worth reading. And it's sad they've been lost ever since Konami decided to scrub the entire website. If you have a lot of patience, though, you can always trudge back through the Wayback Machine.
That really sucks, man.
Professional journalist Grapha. Another casualty of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Blog purge, this is the best thing Konami's ever done. So Dark Worlds are a very competent strategy. The deck has ways to completely cripple the opponent, outpower them, out-resource them. Even before the first structure deck they got, Dark Worlds could realistically win a game, which wasn't very common for the early archetypes of Yu-Gi-Oh! That structure deck, though, was where the deck really came into its own. It was said to be one of the strongest structure decks released up to that point. And
I mean, it's also just really cool aesthetically. Danger Dark World was a whole lot of fun to play.
And Konami wanted to find a unique way to market it. The result they came up with was nothing short of brilliant. They would give coverage of exclusively Dark World games, and gave the job of writing up those articles to a guest columnist who used to write for The Washington Post, New York Times, and Wall Street Journal.
Have you ever wondered how Dark World monsters become such terrifying, gruesome instruments of destruction? Let me tell you how.
Whoa.
We battle a lot, and if we run out of foes to demolish, we battle against each other. Most of the titanic struggles waged by Dark World armies are against other Dark World armies, as the nobility of Dark World battle one another for supremacy. Better to rule than to serve, yes. And now, in the first elimination round of your tournament today... Elimination. Such a delightful word.
Indeed.
Two Dark World duelists are facing off to tear each other apart. It's just like home. I will therefore join both sides of this battle. I have granted battlefield promotions to both duelists, giving them the temporary rank of General. Let us see what they can do. But no matter what happens, I, Grapha, Dragon Lord of Dark World, will win.
Yeah, the articles were written by the Dark World boss monster Grapha.
That is amazing. That is the greatest thing they could have done. I agree. Like in-universe reporting. And you know, that's just so much fun. It's way more fun to read something like that than it is, you know, just an overview of the deck or a report on how the duel went. Maybe some people who are like really into the game and want to play at a competitively high level would prefer something more blunt about it, talking about statistics and choices and whatnot. But if you want to sell it to casuals, I think this is definitely the way to go.
Match write-ups would be done from Grapha's perspective as a commander delegating control of the Dark World army to the duelist playing the deck. These articles would strictly adhere to kayfabe, as Grapha was not a writer pretending to be Grapha. This was the actual monster who was sitting at a little laptop, or maybe a very big laptop, and writing detailed write-ups for Yu-Gi-Oh! Games.
Cowardly mortals! I, Grapha, Dragon Lord of Dark World,
gotta use the entire title,
to devastate duelists around the convention center. In a format where duelists nationwide believe any deck is viable, I am here to prove that only my army, the Dark World army, is worthy of emerging in victory. For now, Austin Starks is commanding my army, and he has brought with him new recruits. Even the noble Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand has allied itself with my Dark World forces. The opposing Fire Fist forces, controlled by Pedro Isidro, think they can defeat me? Let's duel and prove them wrong.
I took the Maxi Challenge and lost.
Strelbridge reflected. I, Grapha, Dragon Lord of Darkworld, simply laughed.
Eventually, you'd be reminded that this was...
Man, this would be so much fun to write, though. This is the best thing that I've seen from this Iceberg, not gonna lie. Man, this is so much fun.
batshit insane whenever Grapha himself was used in a game, since he would exclusively refer to himself in the first person. You weren't summoning Grapha, you were summoning me. He'd also have a side section where he talked about the latest cards with applicability in Dark World decks. Grapha was especially happy when Dark Worlds would put up major results, ending up with his best article after Dark Worlds won YCS 100.
And then somebody said, I told you so!
If you thought Grapha would shut up after winning the event itself, you're dead wrong.
Duelists, I, Grapha, Dragon Lord of Darkworld, welcome you to Dallas, Texas, and the latest YCS event for my Darkworld army to conquer. As you all know, I triumphed in the most recent YCS in the United States, YCS Long Beach. Consequently, I have become the ruler of the dueling world, and have taken the liberty to rename today's YCS as YCS Grapha. Is it goofy?
Aggressively. This is hands down the oddest way competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Has ever been covered. And last time we saw a guy do it naked.
Oh, goodness.
But it is so funny and charming to imagine Grapha passionately sitting in a crowd, waving a flag with his own face on it.
It is just such a humorous image. I love that mental image of him typing away at his little keyboard, just reporting on duels, being all giddy when his armies go and win something. I'm glad that they did this. I hope they've done more of this. It doesn't necessarily have to just be Grapha, but I guess Grapha, they've presented him as a character archetype that I personally really enjoy. It's like the funny villain who's trying to be really menacing, but is just very humorous.
The promotion only went on until the end of 2012, thankfully covering the one YCS Dark Worlds did top, but would actually be brought back again for no reason 2 years later in 2014. Grapha remembered his password and was back to writing, but sadly only had 2 more in him before returning to his domain.
No.
Now, why couldn't they contact him to draft up something for the London YCS where Jesse Cotton beat the shit out of that kid with Dark Worlds?
That would have been amazing,
The Pegasus Challenge. No, not you, Joseph.
Oh, man.
Okay, these 3 back-to-back will make it seem like Konami has banned fun, because 3 of the best things Konami ever did were extremely short-lived. This doesn't refer to a single event, or even style of events, but an ever-evolving series of events played out at locals and YCSs. The original form it took was created in August of 2009 and was called the Pegasus League. This was a series of weekly tournaments held at participating OTS shops that would award players points that would be put towards an end-of-month pool, with the highest-earning players earning free packs. The catch was that the Pegasus League worked on a format system. Every few months, Konami would rotate out the rule set used in the tournaments and introduce a new one. The inaugural format was Cast Party format. To play in the format, all cards in your deck had to be of the same rarity. You had to play all commons, or all rares, or all ultra rares, no mixing. After that would be Earth, Wind, Fire, and Water format, where duelists needed 4 cards of the stated attributes in their deck. Not 4 cards overall, 4 cards each. New Year's resolution gave fans a taste of how good they could be having it by only letting players use cards released in the previous year, starting with Raging Battle and ending with the Machina Structure Deck. Double Deck format upped the deck list minimum to 100 cards, while a rare format gave players an extremely particular deck list breakdown for rarities. 2 secret rares, 2 gold rares, 2 ultra rares, 6 super rares, 20 rares, and 8 commons. That had to be the breakdown of your 40-card deck.
This sounds really cool because a lot of the fun that comes from playing card games is the deck building. So trying to create a strategy under these particular formats and to play in this tournament is, I don't know, that sounds exciting to me. If I had the resources to do so, of course.
All of these made for deck building changes that were really interesting.
Yeah.
Just the concept of shifting Yu-Gi-Oh! So radically with format changes like this was a really neat idea. The concept would be refined in 2010 into the Pegasus Challenge, a similar idea that let the OTSs decide which events to run week by week, and introduced 2 new formats. Back from the Forbidden format, unbanned a substantial amount of banned cards like Pot of Greed, Heavy Storm, and Change of Heart, while Traditional format got rid of the ban list entirely and shifted all banned cards down to simply being limited. The events would slowly peter out until 2011 when the Pegasus Challenge was discontinued at the OTS level.
Unfortunate.
I did say that this made it to the YCSs though, so when was that? Well, it was in the final form the Pegasus Challenge took, and easily its most incredible version, the Ultimate Pegasus Challenge. The Ultimate Pegasus Challenge took place at 4 events: YCS Providence, the 2013 and 2015 WCQs, and at the 2000th YCS in 2018, and were Swiss-style tournaments not dissimilar to the actual ongoing main events. The trick was this. At any point during the event, the house mic would go live, and Darren Dunstan, the voice actor for Pegasus, would speak in character and begin changing the rules. Imagine you're playing a game and...
That is so fun. Because I imagine that's what he does in the anime, right? Like, he makes up his own rules. That feels like a classic villain. Like, he would do something like that. That's awesome.
It's going really badly. Your opponent's field is loaded with monsters and powerful spell traps, you have 1 card in hand, you have no chance. And then Pegasus himself butts in and says, destroy all cards on your field, shuffle your graveyards into your deck, then send the top 15 cards to the graveyard, and then draw 5 cards. You were immediately back in the game, but you also weren't allowed to attack during your battle phase if you didn't shout Yu-Gi-Oh! The Ultimate Pegasus Challenge was essentially a roulette wheel with a voice actor tied to it, and it's one of the most fun concepts I've ever seen in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament.
Yeah, that does sound like a
The
lot
only
of fun.
thing protected from Pegasus were chains in the middle of resolving. Everything else was free game. To throw extra spice into the 2015 version, halfway through, Pegasus would get taken out by Merrick. And now Merrick's voice actor could create new rules, like turning every monster on the field into Nimble Momonga and having them replace themselves, or applying the effects of Makiura the Destructor and Necro Valley to both players. Sadly, the event hasn't been run in over 7 years without any sign of a resurgence.
That's
if you have the
unfortunate.
time, I implore you to check out the 2015 version on YouTube. It's one of the funniest things Yu-Gi-Oh's ever produced. Hollywood Fancast. The world of unofficial fan magazines is a really weird place to go back to in culture. Nowadays, fanzines are pretty common to see, but they're usually put together by a group of fans on the internet, showcasing fan work like fan fiction or fan art, but that's not what these were. Fan magazines used to be published in stores. I distinctly remember seeing official, unofficial Pojo magazines for sale right next to Nick Magazine in the supermarket. These things were just out there. Anyway, these fan magazines are sources for loads of old and weird stuff surrounding Yu-Gi-Oh! Seeing what was considered the best cards of the era, combos like the infamous Raigeki Silverfang combo are found here, and our subject, a fan-made casting call for a live-action Yu-Gi-Oh! Movie. The source for this one is Beckett Yu-Gi-Oh! Collector's Books, a combination fan magazine and buyer's guide which would give you a look at what cards were worth so you could get the most out of them when trading.
Actually, have they ever done a live-action Yu-Gi-Oh! Adaptation? I would assume no, and if they did, I'm going to assume it didn't go very well. There have been some pretty great live-action adaptations more recently, though. Like, I've heard that a lot of people really enjoy the One Piece live-action. So, that you never know. But I do feel like a lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Designs themselves are just very out there. They're very anime. And if you try to copy any of that into a live action, I don't know how good that would look.
As well as anime and character write-ups. To celebrate the release of Pyramid of Light, they held a fan poll to cast each of the main characters for a prospective live-action Yu-Gi-Oh! Movie. Some casting choices aren't bad. One casting choice isn't bad. If this movie was meant to be made in 2004, I have no doubt that Frankie Muniz would have been tossed around for Yugi. It breaks down at the very next one, though. Jim Carrey as Joey. Okay, so Yugi is aged appropriately, and then Joey would be a fully grown man. Oh, don't worry, though. They cast Adam Sandler as Tristan.
Oh,
He's
goodness.
not your big daddy's water boy, but he is the one who fans chose to play the kooky, cone-haired clown of a friend, Tristan. Can you imagine the outrageous Adam Sandler transformed into a mechanical monkey? Yeah, this movie's gonna cover Duelist Kingdom, Battle City, and the Virtual World arc all in one go. We had to cut out the dueling to make room for Adam Sandler. A few of the other casting choices are just here to remind you of the year by casting Amanda Bynes, Hilary Duff, Orlando Bloom, and Hayden Christensen. I could just say all of those names back to back and you'd know what year it was. The next one will be read bereft of all jokes
Johnny Depp as Varric?
and merriment. This is serious business.
Oh, goodness.
Mike Myers as Weevil Underwood. Now, if Adam Sandler isn't enough comic relief as Tristan, the maniacal Mike Myers as Wimpy Weevil Underwood sure is. Sure, he'd look like an overgrown child in Weevil's wacky getup, but we'd get plenty of belly-rolling... Belly-rolling? I don't know what that means. Belly-rolling laughs out of it. Just a reminder, a majority of readers came to the conclusion that Weevil Underwood should be played by Michael Myers. To class up the joint, though, Odeon was set to be played by famous French actor Dwayne de Roquesjanson. These 4 pages are some of the most famous to come out of any Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan magazine. Though they weren't the only ones to try out a fan cast. The official Pojo magazine cast Haley Joel Osment as Yugi and Elijah Wood as Kaiba. 11 Oscars!
Elijah Wood.
Yu-Gi-Oh! The movie.
Alrighty, dudes. I think I'm gonna have to call it here for now, but man, the whole Grapha reporting on duels thing, probably one of my favorite things that has come out of this Iceberg. At the very least, definitely on this level. Regardless, though, thank you guys so much for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed your time here and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll catch you guys in the next one.